Well, hello everyone. I'm Ed Parcaut here with Brian Galke, and we're
Everybody.
Aces53. That's right.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, that's who we are, and we're sticking with it. Did you have a good
We are.
weekend into the Monday? Because I know today is Tuesday.
Yes.
Guess what?
Tonality Tuesday, right? Is that what we're going
Is
to
that
call
what
it?
it is? Is that what
Yes.
today is?
Tonality
Tonality
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Oh wow,
Yeah,
you really worked hard on that one, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
Set up for 3 days, writing down little things.
I would have just thrown in Chat GPT and said, "Hey, what rhymes with Tuesday that we're talking about?"
No, I watched the new Terminator movie. You can't trust it. It's going to be Skynet, which there is. There's a new Terminator movie on Amazon Prime that's got all the same people in it. So it's kind of funny to watch.
New?
Yeah.
Which one?
It's called Terminator Genesis.
That's an old one.
No. Hold on. This
Yes,
one.
yes. Came out years ago.
No, this is a different one. It just came out. Hold on, let me find the.
Yeah, 2019.
Oh, it was 2015. Okay, like I said,
Don't question me about Terminator, dude.
I thought I'd seen them all.
Nope, you have not.
Hey, you watch your Tonality with me.
That's right. Don't you forget it. Yeah, I mean I get it. Yeah, be careful, Skynet, gonna come. Once it's alive and it starts thinking, we need to worry. But until then, yeah.
Did you see Elon's tweet about people don't realize how dangerous it is? And so everybody's freaking out and reposting that everywhere.
No, I don't follow all that social media.
Yeah.
There,
I'll send it to you.
A lot of us, we create, but we don't always follow as much as other people do.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, and that's not any way standard. It just, that's how it works. You're just so busy. I mean, this last weekend, I didn't get on pretty much anywhere because I was working at the house trying to get it back into place after we had all this construction done.
Right.
And so that's, so Monday through Friday, maybe. Saturday, Sunday, never.
Gotcha.
Right. Everybody posts their personal stuff.
Yeah.
Not weekends. Yeah. I don't want people to know where I'm at, so they come and find me. Just kidding.
Well, like we talked about, everybody's posting about AI in one form or fashion. I now get probably 5 to 7 emails a day of people who were in just marketing recently, and all of a sudden they're Chat GPT experts,
right.
And they're AI experts and everything. And that's a sign, right? They know how much marketing agencies were going to be affected, copywriting, print, everything. I mean, think about it. It's kind of scary for them.
I just think I don't think it's that scary for them if they know how to use it and they can get more things done.
Right.
I guess you're having your landscape done today here.
Yeah. Of course, timing is everything. I'll mute when I'm not talking.
All right. But yeah, it's just, it's out there, and I'm amazed how many people, like, even in my industry, they're pushing stuff about, hey, this is how you should. And it's like, okay, that was like so last 30 days ago, and now we're on to something else. But the most important thing that we want to talk about is sales, because that's the most important thing that people aren't focused on. They're focused on all the noise that's going on out there. I can't say my hands, noise that's going out there. And you need to be focused on making phone calls, talking to your FaceTime with your people to get sales. Otherwise, you will die of no money and have no way to pay for food, clothe your children.
Well, and that's just it. You can use AI to create the script, right? But you still have to make the call.
Yeah, can you use AI to tell the gardener when to come and when not to come? I appreciate that. Hey, by the way, can you get away from my window because you're making a lot of noise? But it's, and I get it. That's why I moved out my other studio, because it was the elevator that wasn't there when I first moved to the building. The elevator was there, but people weren't using it because everybody was still locked down. And then all of a sudden, people started coming to the building. It's like through the noise. It's like, I can't deal with that. So let me know when they're available for you. But today, tonality that we're going to talk about, and we were talking about we'll go through the stuff, but to me, I listen to clients' stress levels on the phone. I can hear in their voice what I'm saying and how they're reacting to it. Not so much for what they're saying, but how the stress levels in the voice. And it was funny because there's an old show, and it's really old. It's probably from the 70s, 80s, probably 70s. Rockford Files. Remember Rockford Files? I know that was brand new when you came out. But for me, that was reruns. But occasionally I rewatch it. It's on Prime, which is actually free verse. And I watch it, and they were doing one of the shows that I watched was about they put them in stress situation, and when they were listening to the stress in their tones and how they reacted to things through the recordings, and they put it through the system. And it's the same thing we do when we're talking to somebody, and we want to listen to, hey, how are they taking what I'm saying? Because when you email them or text them, you have no idea how they're reacting to what you're saying, because at that point in time, it's whatever they're going through in life, not necessarily what you're saying to them. But when on the phone, they're present, they're talking to you. But you can also hear the kids in the background going, "Mommy, can you give me some food?" Right? You hear all that, so you're relating to the clients, and you can connect with them. And that's what I do a lot with the phone. Is people will say something, I'll hear something in the background, and then I'll let them know I have the same thing or this kind of thing, and then you're bonding with the client at the same time. You're muted.
Oh, I know. I was waiting for him to go away, but we'll see. I think
they really got to get some weeds away from your window.
Yeah, you have to get the scripting down, right? And that's why we're talking about AI. So once you have what you're going to say, that's when you can add the tonality to it, and you can do exactly what you said, which is listen to how are people responding. The mistake most people make, and I've made this mistake, is rushing through something because I'm nervous or, too high a tone, right? And that's what they've done studies. And the studies are, we trust deep, low voices like Morgan Freeman reading something versus a higher pitch and a faster pitch. So there is an association that people who talk fast must be nervous. So even though they can be brilliant people, if they talk fast, sometimes it can be taken the wrong way. And we know somebody who's extremely intelligent, right? Qasim. And he talks fast. And the difference is because of the amount of knowledge he's just trying to get out, he still comes across as authentic and knowledgeable. But if you were to take out those specific details and facts that he has, he would just look nervous and trying to rush instead of trying to get you as much information as possible. And that's why the number one thing that they teach when you're even in tonality is how important a pause is, as well as how your voice comes across, right? So what is tonality? Tonality reflects the way that you use your voice to convey different emotions and meanings. And to your point, with text messages and email, you're at the mercy of the reader at the time that they opened it as to how they read it. And, it's one of the things of stereotyping. Older people who send text messages or emails in all caps don't realize that's seen as yelling or screaming, right?
That's the same as email. It's the same as email. Yeah.
Yep.
So. Yeah. But I just yell all the time, so it works for me.
There you go. Yeah. So what is some of the suggestions they give to people who are new to using tonality? Start with a friendly and confident.
How are you new to tonality? Let me back up a little second. Let me back up. Your parents' tone when they talk to you changed when you were not in trouble and when you're in trouble. When you're at school and the teacher wanted to this tonality has been here your whole life. So it's not new to you. It's just understanding more about it.
It's new to know how to use it, right? We respond.
Really, I yell all the time before I knew how to use it.
Right. We know we can hear it when somebody's doing it to us, when their tonality changes, but we aren't always aware of how we're presenting ourselves to other people. And that's where newer salespeople, they get the number one, that's the commission breath, right? Number two, the nervous, fast pace is a problem, and then how they say it. So you can ask a question and where it may, but it sounds like a statement if you're using the tonality wrong. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble when they're doing cold calling, is not asking questions, but just literally showing up and throwing up to whoever answers the phone. Right. But I think to your point, it's one of those things that subconsciously we've been around it all, but we don't know how to use it to our advantage one way or the other.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to knock what you were saying.
I like our conversation.
You could have heard that through my tone. I was really trying to, to me,
I thought you were throwing a softball.
Well, the issue is I was in the Navy or military, we'll just say that, and you learned how to do cadence while you're walking by using your diaphragm. And so sometimes I come across louder than I need to be just because I'm used to using my diaphragm. Well, when I'm on a mic, I've learned to barely talk so that it's not that big of a deal, but it's a little different. Why are you laughing at me?
Because I didn't think you used a diaphragm.
I didn't say a diaphragm, my diaphragm. Yeah, whatever you.
So to your point,
aren't you so funny?
Sometimes, at least one of us laughed. Number 2, use a tone that matches the message. So obviously, if you're calling to sell a product and it's a high-end product, you can't sound nervous and fast while you're doing it. Or if it's who are you dealing with when you're talking to them? Are you trying to create urgency? Are you trying to create awareness? All that will determine how do you talk to the person when you're doing the pitch.
Before you go to the next, but the other thing that we do, and I was horrible at this, you're trying to get through your calls, you get a voicemail. Yes. So you race through leaving the message instead of slowing down, saying the message so people can understand it. And according to the commercials, you got to say the number twice. Anyway, I'm on radio. We always repeat the number twice because that's how people write it down. Exactly. And they actually say, if you're going to leave a message, leave your number in the beginning of the message so they don't have to listen to it, the whole thing again.
Right. Well, and some people won't even listen to the whole message, right? They
just call you back.
Exactly. This day and age, and part of this is a fault with my phone, but like my AT&T phone, people leave me a message and it doesn't let me know that there's a voicemail. Sometimes it's 30 minutes or an hour later that tells me there was an actual message from them. So I've just gotten so used to it. If I see a missed call, I call somebody back before I ever listen to it. Now, of course, it's different if you're at work and you're answering a business line, but in reality, how many people have a business line anymore? It's so rare. It's unbelievable.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, you have to, because it's not just, so you have a company number and then you have my personal number direct, right?
Right.
That's the 2 numbers. And for years, people are like, why aren't you promoting your company more? I'm like, because I'm the one that is the most important, because people are going to follow me, not my company. My company could go away. They're still going to follow me to the next place I go to, wherever I go to. So it's important to promote yourself, and same with your phone number. Back to your thing about people, don't leave messages. There was one guy, his voicemail says, get with the day and age and just text me.
I knew a guy who was over data intelligence at a company, and he would never set up his voicemail. He just left it so that you couldn't leave a voicemail for it for years. And he's like, well, if people want to talk, they'll call.
Right. Well, I know a lot of people leave it full for that same reason. They don't, it's set up, but they just leave it full.
Yeah. That's just it. I mean, when you listen to a message, like I said, it's easier to just call somebody back and have the conversation. But back to what you talked about earlier, once you actually get a hold of somebody, you have to pay attention to what's their tone, what's going on in their background, what's going on in their voice, right? And you have to kind of mirror or match somebody. So somebody talks a little bit slower, then you have to talk a little bit slower. And this is more for people who are calling across different geographical areas, right? The stereotype, I live in Dallas, Texas. People are going to talk a little slower than if you're in New York and kind of talk fast, because that's the way you're raised to talk.
Now, do I have to add the accent if I'm matching them?
No, but we used to have a guy that he sounded like when he answered the phone, it was value added communications. This is Ryan. And I'm like, oh God, anybody who's calling in has to think he's in overalls with no shirt, just chewing on hay. That was so bad. But yes. But it's funny. People associate a New York style or a Chicago style, very fast paced, very authoritative communication as an authority. And if you talk slower, people will actually think, now there's a difference of slow enough that you're not rushing, but if you talk too slow, people assume that you're not cognitively as smart as people who talk to a medium to fast pace, depending on what part of the country you're in, right? And so you have to know not just who are you calling, where do they live, can play a part in how you talk to those people.
Right? Most of the time, get to the point, will you?
What's that?
Get to the point, will you?
I did. But
you were talking so slow.
Yes.
I didn't know what the point was. I'm just.
Oh, no, I was paying attention to
I'm just messing with you because your signal's a little slow.
So is it slow today?
I'm just saying it takes a second or two. Occasionally, we'll have some slowness there. So
yeah, blame Verizon today. I don't know what's going on with them.
Well, it seems like you have both services are horrible, so maybe you should go with something else.
Can't get much up where I'm at.
Get the consumer cellular.
I'll go back to dial-up.
Consumer cellular at your age.
I'll go back to dial-up. AOL.
There you go. All right, keep going. What are you doing? All right, so emphasis and meaning your words. Yeah.
Yep. So using
Brian really likes
tonal
banners. He
variation.
likes to use them ever since he found them. He
Yes,
thinks
I
it's so
do like
important.
banners. It is. That's because I looked him up. I spent so much time on Chat GPT. I think it's important to show the work that AI created for us.
For you.
But it is. You have to. Everybody remembers Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You know, the teacher in the front, Bueller. If you don't add some type of emphasis to things and change the tonality while you're talking, you will lose people in a heartbeat. It always amazed me. We'd go and do these presentations, and you'd see some people who just, they were lifeless while they were giving a presentation. It was good material, but ultimately people, especially in this distracted day and age, you have to do something to stand out and keep their attention. And if you talk on monotone, you're going to lose them that much faster in the, TikTok world where people are just scrolling for things to capture their attention. That's why a lot of ads and videos and things, you have to say, here are my 3, whatever. And you have to sound excited about it. But if you just go
Unlike
in
us
that
right now.
monotone pitch, because you do. I can't even tell you how many times. Sometimes if it's rare I get a telemarketer, but sometimes I'll just listen to see how they're going to say it, right? What are they going to say? What's their answer going to be? And I got a call from a guy asking me about my 401k last week. He's like, yeah, my person called me this, and I gave him something he didn't like, and he immediately changed his tone and said, well, I guess I'll just get you over to that other department then.
Thank you so much then.
Yeah. And I said, all right, that's good. If he had been smart, he could have asked questions about, well, why did you decide that? Right. And that's where the tonality, his tonality made it that I didn't even want to work with the guy anymore. So it's funny. It works both ways. We've talked about it before. When you're prospecting, you're calling, not every call are you going to close. So why not set it up that this is just the first of many conversations? And so that's where it's kind of a game of just kind of figuring out who people are. How do you talk to them? We've talked about this before. There are some people like Janine Driver that if I call her, she'll never answer. But if I send her a voice text or a video text, she'll answer right back. So it's also learning not just tonality, but what medium do people prefer to talk over?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But yeah.
Well, and talk about, your background before, you had to do a lot of cold calling, right? You did your 8 before 8.
Well, I still call. And to me, it's never, most of my stuff is all referred. I don't really get internet leads. That's not been my thing. I never liked them. I don't like to have to call 100 people to get 1 or 2 deals. It's just not for me, my time, what I want to do. I'm better off working with agents and building agents who are good agents, and they refer people and I get to them. But you still have the same people who they refer. Could be an internet lead that they had that they talked to, then they send them over to you. You still run into the same scenario. You need to know how many of those you need to get through to get to the one. And because you can, and that way you can always be happy on the phone and say, hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And you don't tell them this, but they've just got you closer to that number that you need to get the person you need.
Exactly. And that's, like you're talking about, you don't do a lot of cold calling, but even when you're calling a warm lead, you still have to use all those different variations, tone, understand what they're looking for, listen to in their voice. Are they coming to you because they're scared? Are they coming to you because they want an investment? You have to listen for what's going on in other people's worlds so that you can create that bond with them. And that's the big thing is people don't listen to figure out where they are. They're listening for a break so that they can talk. And you can tell a difference in that. It's not in the notes here, but everybody should read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss as a great way when you're calling people, like, what are some things to say? He talks about, if you want the authoritative voice, you do the late night DJ voice, which you already have a very deep voice as it is. But
I do.
If people talk really high and really fast, you don't pay as much attention as once people slow it down. Right. And that's an interesting thing. I'm a nervous fast talker because I'm trying to get out a lot of information, and I learn I have to slow it down because it does come across as nervous versus trying to get out as much information as I can.
Because you have a little nervous to yourself when you talk like that. And no, it's not picking on you. It's just you do. Even on video, sometimes, like if I push your full screen, you're like, oh, I'm full screen. Where I've done that to you a few times. Hey, I'm talking here. Don't over talk over me. What's your problem? But one of the other things you have to understand is when you're talking to people and you're calling them, it's important because a lot of times people go, when you call somebody, don't ask them if this is a good time to talk.
Oh, it's a horrible thing to say. Yeah.
I disagree.
Oh, really?
Did I call? Is this a good time for us to go over this? I always ask that because I know they want to move forward, and I don't want to make sure that, because if I hear stress in their voice, it's probably because this is not what they wanted to do right now.
Yes.
So asking that question, I don't care if they say no, it's not. Then I can get a time for them, and we can actually go over the stuff. Where a lot of people are like, "Don't do that," because then they can, I don't have that issue. I feel it totally different with I'm actually being courteous to them. I interrupted their day. I interrupted what they're doing. It's, if we had an appointment time, that's different. But if I'm just calling, trying to get connected with them, I want to know if this is a good time. And before, and a lot of people say that's not a good thing to do. For me, it works really well for what I do.
But that's with going in with warm leads, right? If you're cold calling,
you never
truly cold, then nobody's ever going to say it's a great time. That's why they say if you're doing cold calling, don't ask, is this a good time? Kind of push to get more time, or explain, hey, I just need a few minutes of your time. Right. Then you can get into it and talk to them a little bit. Maybe there will be a time to call back, but because you're cold calling versus you're doing warm leads, they've already expressed an interest.
They still say not to do it. Everything I've ever heard or read says not to ever say, is this a good time for us to talk? You're not supposed to do that. But for me, it works. But I also listen. Mm-hmm. So, I'll just go. And if I hear, then I go, hey, is this a good time to talk? Yeah, this is fine. No, can we schedule this for this? Yeah, no problem. Like go ahead. Go ahead. No, you were just so focused on waiting for me to shut up and see how
that reminded me, Greg Reed. That's how he got in to meet the people when he did the cold calling. He said, can I have 12.7 minutes of your time or 7.5 minutes of your time, whatever it was. And when he gave a specific time, when he was calling people would allow that versus, is this a good time? He would say, can you spare this amount of minutes? Because the dangerous question with, they call it false time constraint, right? Is if you just say, is this a good time? Somebody doesn't know. Are you wanting me for 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours? But if you specify how long, that's what Greg found that made him successful when he was doing all these cold calling, was he gave a specific amount of time.
Also, people block out 30 minutes, 45 or an hour for different things. Mm-hmm. So when you do other than 15 minutes, then they're like, oh, I can fit that in. You follow me? So there's that whole thing too with how people set up their calendars in the past.
Right.
So I can see that also. But yeah, but you just need to know what works for you, figure that out. It's going to take time, and you really need to understand how to talk to people. And I mean, understanding tones and inflections and stress, everything in people's voices will make you a much better salesperson because they know you care about them. You know what I mean? So
one of my favorite shows, Lie to Me. It's still on Hulu if you ever want to watch it.
I watched the whole season.
Oh yeah, I love that show. And that's what people
about 6 months ago
confuse with what I teach versus that, that's micro expression. So that for anybody who doesn't know, the show Lie to Me is based on Paul Ekman. Paul Ekman was a scientist who learned micro expressions, traveling around the world for I think like 30 years. Wrote several different books based on that, but that's what TV show is based upon. But they go into things like, oh, did you hear the stress in their voice because their voice raised? Or did you hear that was one of the first places we've always hear about fight or flight, but we don't always hear about freeze. And so they will, in one of the episodes, they talk about when people hold their breath, it's because they're going through some type of stress that causes that. And we only hear about the fight or flight a majority of the time, but there is the freeze. And people will do that on the phone. So it's just, to your point, while you have a message to get out, it's just as important to over listen than it is to over talk.
Oh yeah. You got 2 ears for a reason and 1 mouth. Use them proportionately.
What are your thoughts on the, just because I had that up, the good pacing, uses of a pause? Were you a big fan of doing that?
Yeah, I was totally, because when you'd go through a sales thing, you go through a certain point and then shut up. And then the next, we used to say, this is years ago, whoever spoke next lost. Right. I use pause all the time. Still to this day, we'll use a pause. But I also mess with people. And I talked about this in one of our other episodes where if I call somebody, I say who I am first and then ask for the person if it's not.
Right.
Which most people, you ask for the person and then they get protective and who are you? But if you say who you are up front, then they don't do that. It's totally opposite. and that you need to disrupt how people are talking and everything about you, or about them, I should say, too. Just whatever they normally are used to, change it.
Right.
And that will make a huge difference in what you do. But that good pace, I kind of go through, I have a whole process I go through, and that's kind of how I wrote my book. We look at credit, then we look at income, and then assets, and then the whole thing. I go through the whole spiel the same way all the time. I've been doing it for so long. And our industry, we haven't changed, meaning that it's still a loan to get the house the same way. Some credit things have changed, but overall it's the same. So for me, it's work for practicing. And that's what you need to do, is get a script, make it yours, practice it so you don't even have to think about it. And I think I've said this before, but I had an ex-business partner, and we would share the same office. So when employees would come in, we'd have to hear it once instead of twice. Because, normally they go to one boss and then they go, okay, let's go in to talk to so-and-so and do it again.
Like mom versus dad.
Right. And so he's like, dude, you say the same. You pick up the phone and you start in the same spot and you go all the way through till the end. I go, yes, that's how you should do it. So you can hit every objection or anything that you've gotten used to hearing from people, have it in your script all the way through. So there's no question. You answered everything before it happens. And that's what I did. Whenever I'd have a mistake that something would come and cause a problem, I would add it in my spiel.
There's a guy in Arizona that with his new hires, he makes them write out their script 100 times in a row. Literally, they have to write it out so they can memorize it. What's that?
On a chalkboard.
It would be kind of funny if you made them do that. That's something you don't hear about being done anymore. I see on The Simpsons, there's still the Bart Simpsons meme.
Yeah, because the chalk is so allergic to people, the dust from it.
Well, now they just make them type it out on their iPad, right? Like my 6-year-old, she has an iPad already at school. I mean, it's not a dedicated one to her, but she'll.
What are you talking about? You hit the little button so they can just talk to it. You don't type it out anymore. Turn on the mic.
But yeah, he does. He makes his new hires write them out 100 times so they can memorize them inside and out. So that way they're on autopilot so they can pay attention to the customer instead of fumbling over their words. And that's depending on who you talk to. Some people think scripts are a bad idea. That's not being authentic. That's not being you. It's kind of like, well, no, it is. It's making sure you know your information so you can focus on the other person. Because
you want, yeah. I mean, you have certain things you have to hit in your presentation on sales that you want to cover. Right. Having a script, make sure that's in there so you don't forget it, so you don't make a mistake. That's why you're scripted. But you need to know it needs to be your script, not somebody else's. Don't get Debbie's script and you start reading it on the thing. And that's the thing about being on radio is you can't read on radio. Yes. Right. When we're here, it's like this. We are having big news to share. Check out 2013, the most trustworthy. It doesn't work.
Right.
That's what people do. They try to read a script. You can't. You need to know the words. And that's why writing it works really well. Here's an example. My first time I was going to cheat in high school, I wrote all the answers on my shoes, on certain things. When I got to the test, I actually knew it.
Right.
And I was shocked.
You'd written it out. Yeah.
Right. I was so worried that I was going to get caught with the stuff on my stuff and get busted for cheating when I didn't need to cheat. And that's the same thing as writing it, listening to it. And years ago, I would, when we had cassette tapes, back in the day, and I would record stuff on it and play it next to me when I was sleeping. Certain things I want to remember, certain things. You can do it now with iPhone, but that's what I did back. And it works.
Right.
The more you hear it, the more, and I would do my presentation and then listen to it. Same thing you can do today on your phone, which we had to do on a separate machine back then.
Well, so Brad always talks about, there's you get shown the information. I didn't say his last name because I knew you were going to say that. So you have to know the information, right? Then there's preparation and then it's repetition. And that's exactly it. Is exposure is never enough for anything. It's the repetition that builds everything in your life that you've ever been good at. Right? It doesn't matter from brushing your teeth to going to the gym to whatever, eating the right way, whatever it is, it's the repetition that builds skill. Right. And that's where you see people get up on stage, even comedians, right? People think, oh, they just get up on stage and make a joke. No, they practice it in private for so long. And then they test the joke and decide, do I keep it or do I ditch it? But that's the big misconception with people is, oh, people just, pull stuff out of their butt and talk about it. No, almost everything you ever see is rehearsed in private before it's ever in public.
I agree. But the biggest thing you're going to show up next is the one thing I forget to do a lot.
Yes.
Because this is me happy. This is me sad. That's what my wife says.
Well, at least you're consistent.
Well, no, it's so important. I mean, it's even, I'm going to bring this up again. They tell us on radio to have a little piece of paper that has a smile. They say to put a mirror there, but I don't want to look at myself. And so they say about, put that in there so that people know, because people can hear, and people can hear a smile across the phone. And 100%. You know how you fix that? Stand up. Don't sit at your desk. We used to, before they had these desks that go up and down, which, we had to actually just stand, and we would do sales calls by standing. I would tell people, get out of your chair, make the phone call.
Right.
Because it's a totally different energy. If you're just sitting there, this is Ed, I'm calling about this program that we have to sell you on first-time home buyer. Yeah, I want that. Thank you so much.
You're right. Now on 4 years of having a stand-up desk, if I go and sit, I just feel like the energy goes flying out. Like I went to a 2-day event last week, and I had a hard time sitting there. I'm just so used to standing and having everything here. I mean, yes, I'll sit at the desk, but the majority of the time I'm standing, and it's a lot better. Now, Janine at one time said the one thing you have to watch, though, is that you're not too rigid, because we stand up against things. And so there is a current curiosity of if there's correlation between standing and being aggressive on things versus sitting and being a little more laxed. So they are starting to get into that and studying that with body language. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out over time. But give me a standing desk any day. Any day, give me a standing desk versus a sitting desk.
I'm folding my arms. All right, this is where we're at right now.
Exactly.
But, and then, I do it differently than other people do. When I sell on the phone, because I don't really think it is, it's about educating my clients. Right. And I'll go through, and then I ask them before I move forward. I said, are you ready to move forward? Or is there, what more do you need to know before that? Because, did I answer all the questions? And everybody's like, yeah, let's go. It's not like, oh, I need, because again, if you set up your sales script to cover everything you need to cover, they're going to follow you through the process. Right. And I start from A and go to C, and it's the same way all the time. When I get to C, we're ready to move forward and just go.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, I don't need to know about B. Just take me to C.
Yeah. But again, it gets you in your structure. You're used to going through it. So it helps them. And that's the thing. If you have a script and you have a structure and you're going through it, like you said, they may say, I only need to know about C. Then you hit on something during A and B that they actually didn't know that they needed to know that information. And that's why having that script is good. And it doesn't mean you have to memorize it. To your point, you're not a news anchor. You don't have to read from the teleprompter, but you shouldn't have your script down pretty pat so that you can flux with it one way or the other. Right. Expand on one part, shrink another, but you have to know the information first.
And you can always have it next to you because they're not there with you. But if they're there with you, you can still, hey, I just want to make sure I covered everything. Yep, we're good to go. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Because a lot of times in my industry, the biggest thing that loan officers miss is closing costs.
Yes.
It's like, how could you? Well, I told them about down payment, but what about their closing costs and everything else? Because I get so many clients referred to me later. Can you do this? And then I'm like, hey, they went through this process. What's closing costs? Right. And it's like, how can you miss some of that stuff? And so that's different for every industry. Right. But there are those things in every industry that are the same in that industry. And you need to make sure that's in your script. And what I mean, your script is however you come up with it, practice it and do it. So it's yours, you own it, but don't read from something. And when you're talking about teleprompter, I tried a teleprompter a long time ago when I was doing videos. And the problem is I'd read it and I could see my eyes going back and forth as I was reading it. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me.
All I picture is that I'm Ron Burgundy because he reads it exactly like it's printed.
Or Biden.
Yeah. But you're right. The reading is good, but you should do that before you're there. And there are little things you can create, a checklist that keeps you on track. Like a lot of people don't know that, but some of the speakers, a lot of times they'll show their book, and like Ed Parcaut's got his new book at getedsbook.com, right? But what they'll do is the reason that they're carrying a copy of their book isn't actually they're showing you the book, but on the back side of it, they have a cheat sheet of bullet points. So they know to stay on target, especially if they don't have a PowerPoint. And so it's funny. It's not cheating to keep yourself on track. And it doesn't matter if you're speaking, you're calling somebody on the phone, what you're doing, you still have to have that practice. And it's okay to have cliff notes or cheat sheets along with you.
There's nothing wrong with having it. I mean, when you're on stage, you're going to have 5 different 30-second starts, right? Where you have certain subjects that you've hit on for these, in case you're like, what the hell was I talking about? You know, you don't say it out loud, but you go, okay, well, and then you can pick something up for that, and then just go, and then you'll be back in your thing. And it's so much better. And I learned that from Steve Sims. I know he's having that, you know, that introvert to speaker thing going on right now. Which is good if you've never been with Steve, as long as we've been with Steve, to learn all the stuff that he coached me for years. And so I understand totally what he means by that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So do it. And you need to, same thing with selling, have those little things in case you lose your train of thought, you can pick it back up and then go back to it.
Right.
But people don't mind you saying, you know, I lost my train of thought, what was going on. They don't care. Be honest.
Yeah.
They want honesty in this world right now. That is the one thing we miss more than anything else, is being honest. And I don't mean, I'm not knocking administrations and not knocking everything. It's just, we're so lied to so much. We don't know what the truth is anymore. And I'm talking in general. I'm not talking politics.
Oh,
so you being genuine about going, hey, I messed up, I need to finish this. They're going to be much more relaxed with you than not telling them. People are so afraid to say I make a mistake. I always call people. I don't care if it's my fault or not. I always apologize. Even if it's not our fault. And people go, that's not your, it doesn't matter.
I can't tell you how many times I saw people get burned by saying yes. So the sales answer is always say yes, we'll figure it out later. And then you can't figure it out. And you said yes. And then what happens later on is it causes, you know, deals to fall apart. You'll get cure letters, you name it. People who are saying yes because they think that's what somebody wants to hear versus being honest. To your point, there's one of the first guys that I worked with in sales. That's what he'd say. No matter what the customer asks for, the answer is always yes. I'm like, but what if it's not? I don't care. It's yes. We're going to win it and figure it out. I'm like, that's not the best thing.
Or you can always go, you know, let me find out what we can do. I tell people all the time, my job is beginning and end with you. In between the middle, I totally understand it, but that's not what I do for every day. I have people for that. And if I tell you something to do and I get involved with that, I'm going to mess it up.
Right.
It's important. So they're going to talk to you during this period of time. I'm going to come in occasionally, but for most of your stuff, you're going to be speaking with these people. But in the beginning, it's me, and the end, it's me. But and sometimes in the middle. But don't, you know, certain things they ask me, I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah,
because our industry changes drastically. We just had a program come out 10 days ago in here in California called Shared Equity Program, where the state of California is giving you 20% down for your loan. And as the appreciation goes up in the house till you pay them off, you own 20%. It's actually a decent program, right? It's gone already.
Oh,
but
really?
that came out and is gone already. They had 300 million. Well, 300 million went fast in like 6 business days.
Wow. That's
Think about it. State of California, our average is 500 to $1 million for that program. Because if you're in Bay Area or Orange County or LA, you're $1 million. So that could go real fast. That's only like 400 homes.
That's why everybody keeps moving out here to Texas. You guys keep screwing it all up.
No, we want them to move out so we can get somebody else in that house. So, because we're not building enough. But anyway, I'm done with my little soapbox I was on.
Your mini rant. But that's the point, is be honest with people. This is my area of expertise. And if you don't know something, it's a great opportunity to say, I don't know, let me find that out for you. And actually show people that you can follow up and you can find their answers. That's what builds trust. This kind of not knowing and failure in something gives you the opportunity to show people what you can do besides sell something, right? And that's where salespeople already have a bad rap to a degree, right? Oh, that's all they care about is commission, everything else. When you don't know, or when something fails, you have to find out what went wrong, and then you come back and explain to the customers how you build trust. Because you can show them how you respond to things versus, well, I'm just here to sell you something, then move along. That's how you build relationships. And that is going to be one of the things we're going to talk about in a future session is, yes, we're getting you now to go back to the basics of how do you get customers, what should you be focusing on in sales. But then there's going to be long-term care. And that's one we'll probably bring Eric back in for, is how do you take care of people after the sale? So you nurture that relationship, because who's the easiest customer to sell something to? Somebody who's already bought something from you, right? Versus chasing new customers.
Well, it's also about asking, current customers will send you more people more than anybody else. We
100%.
had, yeah, I mean, you just have to ask though, and people don't ask. They're afraid to
Yeah.
ask. And it's not
That,
that big of a deal. Yeah.
yeah, I really liked when Robin was on that, go high level. What do they do when they see success with a customer? They ask, hey, are there 3 people that you know that could help us with that? And that's how they grew their business, was asking for referrals. And not just one referral, but ask for 3. And then you may get more, you may get less. But if you ask for 1, people don't immediately think of somebody. But when you ask for 3, that was a great tip he shared.
But that wasn't his tip to share. What I mean by that, that's
Yeah.
been around for a while.
Right.
I think that all started with multi-level marketing back in 30 years ago or 25 years ago. They would ask you to give them 3 of somebody to give.
Right.
But just because they did that back then doesn't mean it's not relevant today.
Right.
And you should be asking. And some people just ask, because people who are getting married know other people getting married. Right. People buying a home know other people who are thinking about buying a home. People who do this are also know other people. And that's why it's so important while they're in the process and while you're doing it to ask them for that.
Yes.
Or at the end. Yeah.
Right. And that's a lot of times it's a good time to ask is anytime, right? Because let's say that you find that you can't work with someone. You say, oh, that's fine. I understand you're not looking. If you know anybody who is looking for this particular service, then would you, mind sharing their information or giving me their information, whatever way you want to look at it. But it's not always about you have to show them a good job and then ask for referrals. You can do it even up front or in the middle, in the end, you name it.
Right. Wherever it seems relevant. And it's funny because people don't really know, because I've had people go, hey, can I refer someone to you? It's like, of course, that's how I work, only by referrals. And that, because we don't really do bus ads or that's not what we do, but it's people don't know. So you need to let them know it's okay. Please refer them now. And down the road, I'm here for you for the rest of your life while you're in doing this. So come back. I have a kid who came back to me, and I say kid because I think he was 23. And this was when I first started the radio show in 2018. In 2019, his dad told him to listen to the show so he could buy a house. Right. So I helped him buy a home. He just came back to me recently to go buy another home. So that's how important it is. And that's because I have a CRM, which we talked about before, staying in contact with them. But we're going to get some other people in here probably next week. We'll talk more about how to stay in contact with past clients going forward, besides just a CRM. But how do they do it? What do they put into place? Those kind of things.
Right. What are they doing? How are they using it? Data is good, right? That's why we're talking about the CRM. But how do you use that data? That's where it gets to be important. So,
all right. Since I let you run this one today, anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. Those were my 5 chat GPT tips.
Well, it's the 5 thing, no matter where you found it, because the most important thing is understanding how you come across. You need to know that. And the best way to know how you sound is get a set of headphones.
Well, that's what there's a certain belief too, like, don't record your customer calls without the customer knowing it, but record your practice calls and then go back and listen to it. Because when you're doing your practice, you don't know what you sound like at the time. And yes, we all hate to hear our voice to a degree at first, but that's the only way, one of the only ways to improve is actually go back and listen or watch your presentations. So,
and so I do a lot of shows with a partner, right, where we do, multiple, there's hosts. I guess co-host is better than being in Modesto, close to San Francisco, with partner. And I did one today by myself because he was sick in the morning, and I was like, and I'm talking, and I went, those words you add in, like your so's that you used to have. And I was like, how many more times can I say that? I don't know. Let's try it. And it was weird because I'm so used to just talking, but when it's by myself and not having that other person throw something at me or interrupting, you have to fill that in. Don't fill it in. Just pause is a good thing.
Yes. When I transcribe my videos, every time I see a so pop up, I'm like, damn it, it's still there. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us on Tuesday. Ed Parcaut, Brian Galke, and on Thursday, of course, we'll be back with our Joker. And what is the Joker? Joker is an expert who's going to give some more knowledge or tips that they know that they use for success in that particular area. So, of course, this week will be tonality.
All right. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. If you
Bye,
like what we're doing
y'all.
here, subscribe to the channel. Let us know. Please let us know. Leave a comment. Thank you.
Yes. All that he said.